Hi guys, welcome to another video. This time I'm going to talk to you about my new album that I just released. As you may know, I'm actually a photographer by profession, but I also make all the music that you hear in the background of my videos myself. And I've been doing that for about 3 years now. The motivation behind it was that I just couldn't find the kind of music that I personally like to put on my YouTube channel because there's copyright issues and royalties and all of that mess, and I can't just put any music on there or I'm gonna get copyright strikes. So I had to be careful, and then if you look for royalty-free music or look at the YouTube music library, that kind of stuff might not be to your liking. And this is a problem for many people who make YouTube videos. Most people actually use subscription services for this kind of thing. They download the songs royalty-free from there, and you have to pay like a monthly fee, and then you can use as much music as you like. But of course, then you're stuck with the music that's on the subscription service, and that's not necessarily better than YouTube's own library, it's just different. I tried one of those services once and it worked for me for about 2 weeks, and then I was out of tracks or songs to use because I just didn't really like the music that was on there. It was a bit too generic for my liking, and this sort of music is normally meant for commercials, and I'm not really into that sort of thing. So in the end I had to kind of bite the bullet and make my own music again. And this was not my first experience making music. It's not that I learned it from scratch. I actually made music before, and I have a bit of a musical background in the sense that my parents sent me to music lessons when I was a child. I took recorder lessons. Most pointless instrument ever. This is actually a bit sad, but it was basically the only instrument I ever played well in any way. But that never stopped me, you know. Later on I took guitar lessons that didn't get me anywhere either, and I just started making drone sounds with it. I made a lot of ambient music back then when I was around 16, 17, 18, 20, that sort of age, with a lot of very budget gear, and however long ago that was, budget gear was still a lot worse than it is now. So it wasn't really that great, and I always had lots of trouble getting the quality that I wanted. And then in the end I lost it all in a hard drive crash, so there was nothing to worry about anyway. So yeah, people make backups, you really need them. So that was what happened to me. And then I stopped making music because I saw it as some sort of sign from on high, I don't know. And yeah, it took me many years to get back into it. And this YouTube channel basically prompted me to get back into it. So I bought myself a cheap guitar, a Squier Bullet Mustang, and I modded that, and if you're interested in that you can watch a video about that up here, I think. I also bought myself a little MIDI keyboard, a 25 key MIDI keyboard, and this was actually my second MIDI keyboard. I still had one from back in the day, but that one didn't have USB MIDI, or at least it wasn't class compliant, so I had lots of problems with it. It's an M Audio Axiom 25, and I actually like playing it. It even has aftertouch, but it can be a bit of a hassle with the not class compliant MIDI. Now I use it with a USB MIDI converter, and that works. But it used to be what they call a portable keyboard, but that was such a long time ago that portable, that definition has kind of changed. And if you compare it to my small one, it's really rather big. My small MIDI keyboard, on the other hand, has really bad keys, and it's okay for playing in some melodies, for writing music, but you don't want to really play on it. M-Audio one that I have is much nicer for playing, but it's not portable and it can be a bit annoying. Downsides, pros and cons, and the small one is actually one that I use a lot more often. I've taken it on trips when, getting on planes was still a thing, and I've made music with my iPad with it, and it works quite well. And it's cheap, which is why I tend to recommend it, even though the keyboard is meh. And that was basically my setup. It's a very cheap setup. I used an old MacBook Air that's so broken that it always crashes randomly in the middle of doing things. So that's from 2015, a MIDI keyboard from 2006, and one that cost very little to make up for when it's not quite so practical to use the bigger one, and a cheap guitar. I also already had an audio interface that I used for recording voiceovers for this channel, and that was also more of a budget option. Focusrite Scarlett Solo. It has only one XLR input and one instrument input, so if I want to record something in stereo, I have to use weird adapters, and yeah, it's not ideal, but it did the job well. And this was my setup, and this is how I've made this album, basically. The entire album was written on this setup with the DAW that came with my Focusrite interface and the plugins that came with it. Basically, the cheapest setup for making music nowadays is with an old computer. Any old computer will do, because people have been making music with computers since
the mid-50s in America in AT&T Bell Labs. But this music, the music that was played with Syrac, actually predates that. This is a fair simulation of what it would have sounded like at the time.
So you can make music with all of them. Some of them are a bit slower, can't handle so many plugins. Others can handle more plugins, but they can all make music, which is really cool. And it's a relatively cheap setup. Also, an iPad is also a very cheap option that I also always recommend, because you can get an older used iPad, and the plugins for the iPad are super cheap. A plugin that might cost you 60 euros on a computer will only cost you 11 on the iPad, like for example with the TAL Uno. It's like a clone of a Juno 60. I use that plugin a lot. On a computer it's a lot more expensive than it is on the iPad. So there are a lot of budget music making options out there. I often think that people get the wrong impression of how expensive it is to make music by watching music YouTube, because of course musicians always accumulate lots of gear. And by now I've also accumulated a lot more than I had when I started out. But it is possible to make music with very little. With a computer, with a few plugins, a cheap MIDI keyboard. And you don't even really need that. When I started out, I didn't even have a MIDI keyboard. I was drawing in all the notes with the mouse. So it's all possible if you really want to. You don't need hardware synthesizers, and you don't need hardware sequencers or groove boxes or anything expensive like that. You can just make stuff with the equipment you already have. With your phone you can make music nowadays. With your iPad, with a computer you might have, or a used computer that you can buy cheaply. You can get cheap instruments from Asia that cost nothing and are really well playable. There's so many opportunities now to make music, and I think it's never been easier to get into it and never been easier to learn. I think it's really cool. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and it's been kind of keeping me sane throughout all of this pandemic nonsense. And well, this album that I just released was actually written mostly when I couldn't sleep at night. I suffer from insomnia, and often I just can't sleep at night. I toss and I turn, and my mind keeps racing and I just can't sleep. So I used to just stare at the ceiling and get very, very frustrated with myself. But nowadays I just get up and start making music very quietly. I make music with my headphones, and I often have pre-recorded stuff that came up while jamming on one of my instruments, and then I just build tracks around it when I'm too tired to do anything else. And that's how I wrote this entire album. Always at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning I was writing this music, And this might also explain why some of it is a bit strange and a little experimental for some tastes, maybe. I enjoy it a lot. It calms me down. I think it's also calming for other people because people often comment on the background music of my videos being calming, so I thought releasing this music in album form could be a nice thing to do. Yeah, I think we all need a bit of calm in our lives at the moment. Everything is far too exciting. Working on this music has definitely calmed me down quite a bit, and it has channeled my energies into, you know, something creative, because at the moment it's extremely difficult for me to go outside. I happen to be risk group, so it's a bit more difficult for me than for other people. But the music has helped me immensely, and I keep making more and I keep expanding my gear too, which happens automatically. By now I don't only make music on the computer and with a really cheap MIDI keyboard. I use other stuff too. This album is basically how I started making music again. It just shows that you don't need an awful lot to make music these days. I'm really happy that I started on this journey of making music, and I'm actually quite happy with the album that I wrote. Not to pat myself on the shoulder too much. I actually enjoy my own music a lot, and I listen to it a lot while editing my videos. And if I didn't like it, I really couldn't be editing music to the videos. You listen to things so many times over and over and over when you're editing a video that you actually need to like the music or you're gonna go crazy. I've now listened to my music a lot of times in the background of my videos, and also while mixing and mastering and all of these things that are more music related. I've listened to this album now so many times, and I'm really quite happy with it. Basically the album that I always wanted to write back in the day, but I couldn't because I didn't really have the gear and couldn't afford the gear back then. Nowadays you can do that with just cheap budget gear, which is amazing. It's been such a calming experience for me, and I think it has made my life a lot better now that I make music, especially now with the pandemic situation that we're in, and you know, life changes and we can't always channel our creativity in the way we like. Things have been difficult for all of us, and we need to try to stay creative in whatever medium that inspires us at the moment. This might be photography one day, and it might be music another. For me, I'm a person with very many interests, and music has always been my number one when I was younger. It was always a sad thing that I stopped making music, and I had silly reasons for it. Now I'm happy that I'm back to it, and making music makes it a bit easier not to be able to take that many pictures these days. So that's it about the album I just released. If you're interested in the music that you heard in this video or in any of my other videos, then you can check the link in the description. There's a Bandcamp link where it's out already. It will be out on the streaming platforms soonish, but on Bandcamp it is out already and you can get it there. If you want to support your musicians, always go to Bandcamp first. All the streaming platforms kind of rip musicians off most of the time, and there's not a lot of money that flows back from those kinds of streaming services. Those are more so that people discover the music. But if you really want to support musicians, then it's better to do that on Bandcamp. You can also support me directly on Ko-fi if you like what I do here, and this keeps the channel running, and I'm very grateful to my Ko-fi supporters. They make it possible for me to continue making these videos, and they allow me to buy new gear and film for taking pictures and all sorts of other stuff that keeps the channel running. So I always appreciate the Ko-fi support. It's really helpful. But of course, if you can't support at the moment, liking, sharing and subscribing is always a really good option too. I always appreciate all the support in whatever form it may come. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps out my channel, so I would really appreciate it. In the future you will see more videos like this one. I actually have more albums written, so there will be more videos like this one in the future, but also more videos about how I make the music, in fact, because I've been working on a lot of this kind of stuff in the past year or so. Many of the videos that I've been working on I couldn't really show you yet because of the noise levels in this building, and also because there are still some bits and pieces missing. But I will show you more of my process of how I make my music too, and I hope you enjoy that sort of thing, because my photography videos have been becoming more and more difficult to make with the current circumstances, and I obviously will keep them coming as much as possible. But if you look back at my channel over the last 2 years, then you will see that my videos have been a bit sporadic at times, because it's been just so difficult to go outside and take pictures. I will try to keep them coming, obviously, and they will always be coming because photography is one of the most important things I do. But in between, you will now get also videos about music, because there's just no other way. So I hope you don't mind that, and maybe you're gonna find it interesting too. The couple music related videos that I have on my channel have been very successful and you seem to have liked them. So I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy this sort of thing in the future. But don't worry about the photography content, those videos are gonna keep coming too. And well, I hope I see you soon for another video. Bye! My computer came online. Go to sleep, computer. Go to sleep. Will you go to sleep? No, you won't. Seriously. Can't go to sleep either. Even my computer has insomnia.